What if the hardest thing to let go of is not the person you lost, but everything they left behind? Every day for 3 years, Ellen walked past a closet that held her husband's shirts, his shoes, his scent, untouched. The same pair of slippers, still sitting by the bed, the same cologne on the shelf. And every day, she whispered to herself, "Not yet." Grief doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it just settles in, quietly, and stays for years. We keep the mug they used, the voicemail they left. We hold on because we're scared that letting go might mean losing them all over again. But what if it doesn't? What if healing doesn't mean forgetting, but remembering differently? Today's story is not just about Ellen. It's about what happens after loss, the moment you stop surviving and start living again. And if you've ever held on to something, a photo, a drawer full of memories, a whole room frozen in time, because you didn't know how to let go, this story is for you. Let's begin. The Untouched Closet. For 3 years, Ellen's mornings followed a ritual she never planned. She woke up alone, boiled water for tea, chose his favorite mug but never used it. She sat by the window, the silence as familiar as the view. And every day, she walked past the same closed door, the closet. His jacket still hung inside. His shoes were still lined up neatly on the floor. On the top shelf, a box of love notes they'd exchanged over the decades. Untouched. Nothing had moved. She didn't clean it. She didn't sort it. She barely even looked at it. It wasn't about denial. Ellen knew he was gone, but that closet, his closet, held more than clothes. It held presence, the way his scent lingered in his favorite coat, the way his shirt cuffs were still folded just the way he liked them. To touch anything inside felt like disturbing something sacred, and worse, like saying goodbye all over again. Everyone said, "Take your time." But no one tells you how strange time becomes after loss. 3 years passed, and still, grief hovered like fog in her home. The world outside moved on. Holidays came and went. Friends grew older. Neighbors changed. But inside Ellen's house, that closet froze everything in place. She knew people worried. She caught their glances, heard the gentle suggestions. Maybe it would help to start sorting through. But the thought of parting with his things made her chest tighten. Because it wasn't just a matter of cleaning up. It was the fear of forgetting. Of removing the only tangible proof he had been there, been real, been hers. His slippers still sat by the bed. His favorite cap hung by the door. Little things that once made her smile, now made her ache. But something had begun to shift. It wasn't sudden. It was subtle. A weariness, not of love but of pain. She realized she was surviving, but not living. Breathing, but not feeling. Present, but not truly here. And something inside her whispered, what if letting go isn't betrayal? What if it's love, of a different kind? That question lingered, quiet but persistent. And soon, she would find herself standing at the threshold of that closet, hand trembling on the doorknob, heart pounding, not knowing what she was looking for, only knowing she was finally ready to begin. The breaking point. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, no thunderclap moment, just a glass. Ellen had reached up to the cupboard to grab a drinking glass. It slipped from her fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor. The sound rang out through the house, loud and sharp, and then silence. She stared at the pieces, her hand frozen midair. And then, as if a dam had cracked, the tears came. She sank slowly to her knees and wept, not over the broken glass, but over something much deeper, much more frightening. That morning, she had tried to recall the sound of his laugh, and couldn't. For the first time since he died, she couldn't bring it to mind. It wasn't just sad. It felt like a betrayal, a terrifying sign that even the parts of him she carried in memory were beginning to fade. She cried harder than she had in months, not just for the loss of him, but for the loss of that connection, of the immediacy of their love. She whispered aloud through the sobs, "I'm losing you again." That night, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closed closet door. Her hands trembled as they rested on her lap. The silence in the room felt unbearable. Finally, with a shaky breath, she stood, walked over to the door, rested her palm on the knob. "I can't keep doing this," she said softly. "I don't want to forget you by clinging to your shoes. I want to remember you by living." Then she turned the knob. The door creaked open. She didn't step inside. She just stood there, taking it in. The scent hit her first, faint, but still present. That familiar mix of cedar, old paper, and his cologne. She touched one of his shirts. Her fingers lingered on the fabric. So much life had been lived in this space, so many memories folded into each item. And for the first time, Ellen felt something she hadn't felt in a long while. Readiness. Not to erase, not to forget, but to begin a new kind of remembering. The next morning, she returned. This time she came prepared. She brought a candle, his favorite scent. She placed it gently on the dresser and lit it. She spoke his name aloud, and then she cried. Not the paralyzing sobs of grief, but slow, steady tears. Tears that made space. She didn't throw anything away. She didn't rush. Instead, she held each item in her hands. Some she pressed to her face. Others she folded carefully. Each time she asked herself, "Is this bringing me peace or keeping me in pain?" If it brought comfort, she kept it. If it brought sorrow, she thanked it. And then, she let it go. Letting go, she realized, wasn't turning away from him. It was choosing to carry him differently. One box at a time, a new kind of healing had begun. But what would she do with a lifetime of love now packed away? That answer was still ahead. The process of letting go. Ellen didn't rush. She knew grief had its own clock, and it didn't tick by minutes or hours, but by moments of readiness. So, each morning, she returned to the closet. She lit the same candle, whispered his name, and let her heart guide her. Some days, she only touched one item. Some days, none at all. It wasn't about clearing space. It was about creating peace. The first things to go were the easy ones. Old socks, worn-out slippers, items she knew he wouldn't want her clinging to. She smiled, remembering how he used to joke, "Why do I keep these things? They've got more holes than fabric." Then came the books. Dozens of novels with pages turned down, notes scribbled in the margins. She kept a few, the ones he reread every year. The rest she packed gently and donated to their local library. He'd love that, she thought. He always said a good story should be shared. His jackets were harder. She held each one close, remembered the warmth of his embrace, the way he always smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. One coat, a heavy wool one, was his favorite in winter. She pressed her face to it, closed her eyes, and let herself feel the grief, the love, the memories. Then, she placed it carefully in a donation bag. That coat would warm someone else now, and that felt right. His records, classic jazz albums, went to their grandson, who had inherited not just his name, but his deep love of music. When Ellen placed them in his hands, she saw tears in his eyes. "Grandpa would be so proud," he whispered. In giving away the things, she was giving away none of the love. Instead, she was sharing it. Some items she kept. His wedding ring, a scarf they bought on their last vacation, a photo of them laughing in the garden. These weren't relics. They were reminders, symbols not of loss, but of love that had lived. As the closet slowly emptied, Ellen didn't feel emptier. She felt lighter. The silence in the house felt less heavy, her movements less cautious, her nights less restless. Letting go, she realized, wasn't the end. It was a bridge from grief to grace. And yet, one feeling remained: guilt. It crept in at quiet moments. When she laughed out loud at a TV show, when she enjoyed a warm meal, when the house began to feel like hers again. Was it wrong to feel peace? Was it disloyal to feel joy? Ellen struggled. But then she remembered something her husband once told her, years ago during a difficult season. "I didn't marry you to see you stop living when I'm gone. I married you because you light up my world. Don't ever stop shining." That memory became her anchor. She understood. Moving forward wasn't betrayal. It was honoring him. It was choosing to live the life he'd want for her. One filled with warmth, connection, and quiet happiness. And so, she continued, letting go wasn't an event. It was a practice, a gentle unfolding. And as the days passed, her home began to transform, not into something new, but into something that reflected her. Not a shrine to sorrow, but a space where love had lived and continued to grow. Still, the question lingered. Now that the closet was empty, what came next? Finding peace, not forgetting. Guilt doesn't vanish in a day. It lingers quietly. It waits in the corners of joy, whispering, "Should you really be smiling right now?" Ellen knew this feeling too well. The first time she caught herself humming while washing dishes, she stopped mid-note, heart pounding. The house was quiet, but in her mind, she imagined him asking, "Have you already moved on?" But that wasn't his voice. It was guilt speaking through the echo of memory. The truth was, her humming wasn't forgetting. It was healing. And healing often comes disguised in the simplest moments, those in-between seconds where peace finds a way back in. Each item she had given away had created more than space on a shelf. It had created room in her heart, room for quiet, room for breath, room to feel without fear. At night, instead of staring into the dark, she began to read again. Not because she was escaping, but because stories reminded her she was still living one of her own. She found herself cooking his favorite meals, not through tears, but with gratitude. She would plate his favorite stew, set it on the table, and smile. "You'd still say I added too much salt," she'd whisper with a laugh. That laugh, hers, became her compass. With every moment she allowed herself to feel something other than grief, Ellen found herself reconnecting to the world. Not the world as it was when he was beside her, but the one that still existed, asking gently, "Are you ready to return?" She said yes, slowly, quietly, then fully. Her neighbors started seeing more of her again. She joined her church's community lunch, even brought her famous lemon bars. She found herself enjoying long walks without checking to see if someone was keeping pace beside her. Peace didn't come all at once. It came in waves, small, gentle, but persistent. One afternoon, while sitting in the garden they had once tended together, she looked up at the sky and said aloud, "I miss you, but I'm okay." That sentence carried power. It didn't mean she was done grieving. It meant she had made room for something else to coexist alongside the grief. Joy, grace, hope. She realized memory wasn't trapped in the items she had stored for years. Memory lived in her, in the stories she still told, in the lessons he left her with, in the love she now gave freely to others. Her home, once frozen in time, had become warm again. Not filled with ghosts, but with echoes. Soft reminders of a love that shaped her, but no longer defined her pain. It wasn't about moving on. It was about moving forward, and with each step she took, she wasn't walking away from him. She was carrying him with her, just in a different way. She kept a few things: his wedding band, a favorite photo, one old jazz record she'd play on Sunday mornings. But the heavy shadow that had hung over everything? That was gone. In its place, there was light. The kind of light that doesn't erase the past, but allows you to see it with gentleness instead of sorrow. And that light grew brighter each day. So many people carry grief like it's the last connection to the one they lost. Ellen discovered something else. Grief is not the last thread. Love is. Love is what remains when the pain starts to fade. Love is what lets us live again. But how do we take that love and build something new? That would be her next chapter. Life after letting go. After the last donation box was picked up, Ellen stood in the doorway of what used to be his room. The closet was now empty. The shelves were bare. And for the first time in years, the air inside felt still, but not heavy. She didn't rush to refill the space. She let it breathe, just like she was learning to do again herself. A few weeks passed before she placed anything new inside. One morning, she brought in a small table and placed a photo of the two of them, laughing, sunlit, young. She added a plant, something alive and growing. And next to it, she set her old sketchbook. That sketchbook hadn't been opened in over a decade. He used to sit behind her while she drew. Quiet, content, a book in hand. He once told her, "When you draw, it's like you're speaking without words." Now she picked up her pencil again. The lines were shaky at first, rusty, hesitant. But over time, the pictures began to flow. Gardens, faces, memories. Pieces of her soul that had been waiting for light. Each drawing wasn't just an image. It was a sign of life, of return. She signed the bottom of each one with the same flourish she used when they were first married, a nod to the version of herself she thought she'd lost, but now realized had only been sleeping. Soon after, she joined a local art class at the community center. Walking in that first day, heart racing, she almost turned back. But then she remembered what her husband used to say: "You never regret choosing connection." He was right. The class wasn't just about painting. It was about being seen again. Heard. Valued. She met others, widows, retired teachers, one man who had lost his wife just 6 months before. They shared their work and, quietly, their stories. No one had to explain their sadness. It was understood. They laughed together, cried sometimes too. And Ellen, for the first time in a long while, felt like part of something. She also started volunteering at the shelter she had donated his coats to. Every Thursday, she helped sort clothes, greet visitors, and serve warm meals. It gave her purpose beyond her grief. She wasn't just giving away items anymore. She was giving of herself. And in doing so, she rediscovered a powerful truth. We don't move forward by forgetting. We move forward by building. One small act at a time, a smile, a helping hand, a moment of courage. She began hosting Sunday lunches for her family. Her home, once silent, now echoed with conversation, laughter, and the clinking of dishes. Her grandson brought his jazz records and played them loud in the living room. One Sunday, he turned to her and said, "Grandpa would have loved this." She smiled, her heart full. "He's here?" she said. In all of this, evenings became gentler. She'd sit with a cup of tea, sometimes talk to him out loud, not in desperation, but in companionship. Her grief hadn't disappeared. It had simply softened, like the edges of a well-worn book. She no longer dreaded waking up alone. Instead, she saw each day as a page yet to be written. And she was the author again. Life after letting go wasn't about replacing the love she lost. It was about expanding the space in her heart to include more of life, more of people, more of herself. Some days were still hard. Some memories still brought tears. But the difference now? She wasn't afraid of those feelings. She welcomed them. Because they reminded her she had lived deeply, loved well, and she still was. Ellen often thought of something she read long ago. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Now, her love had direction again. It flowed into her art, into her family, into her community. Letting go hadn't been an ending. It was a doorway, one she had walked through, with courage, with tenderness, and with the quiet strength of someone who has loved and lost, and learned how to love again. And you? Maybe you're standing in front of your own unopened door. Maybe you've been holding on, not knowing how to begin. Maybe this story, Ellen's story, is your gentle invitation. Because life after loss is possible. Not perfect, not easy, but full of meaning, full of connection, and with time, full of peace. So, what if you let go, not to forget, but to finally make space for what comes next? That choice is yours. A message to you. Maybe you're holding on to something right now. A jacket, a photograph, a voicemail you can't bring yourself to delete. Or maybe it's not something physical at all. Maybe it's a feeling, a ritual, a space in your heart that hasn't shifted since the day they left. Let me tell you gently, letting go does not mean letting them go. It means you're giving yourself permission to breathe again. You're not erasing the love. You're honoring it by choosing to live in a way that reflects what they gave you, not just in memory, but in action. Take one small step. Maybe today, you light a candle. You say their name. You walk into a room you've avoided for years. You sit with the feeling, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to face it with tenderness. Ask yourself, if they could see me right now, what would they want for me? Would they want you trapped in grief or reaching for light? Peace does not come from forgetting. It comes from remembering yourself within the story. And healing? It doesn't mean you stop missing them. It means you've learned how to carry them differently. You're not alone in this. You're not broken. You're becoming. So whenever you're ready, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next year, open that door. Let the light in. You still have life to live, love to give, joy to feel. And that too is part of their legacy.